To my channel. So this video is basically to kind of go over a quick insight of how to write technical tickets for Jira on Jira. So it's a quick video. So the type of templates that we could write is for example, on a technical side, is basically if there's a new endpoint that has been created, if there's a REST API call. For example, if there's any kind of asynchronous calls, i.e. like Kafka or any kind of storing database, something similar to sort of Kafka. And then of course some business logic to be defined. So I'm just going to go through the first one that we just mentioned. So endpoint. So for endpoint creation, the description could be anything like this, for example. So the title would be create an endpoint to expose functionality name. So an example could be Knowledge Bank, which is my YouTube channel. Create an endpoint to expose a payment, for example. And then you want to write a user story. So it would be something along the lines is as a blah, I want to blah so that I can blah. So it's just to kind of give you an explanation of what the whole point of this Jira ticket is about. So a good example is as a knowledge bank customer application, I want to receive a message from knowledge bank so that I can write a log, for example. What I usually do as well is I usually write some kind of brief or some kind of like just explanation about what the whole essence of that ticket's about. A little background knowledge in regards to what the whole ticket's all about, where it's come from, just to kind of give an idea. And because it's an endpoint, you want to basically know what the URL is. So you would want to put the URL of how that would be. I've just made one up now. So it would be a post call and it would be slash payment slash crime check, for example. But it could be anything. It depends how the coding is being written. So I've just made one up there just to show you. And then you could put like basically the input payload. So this could be like the mapping, for example. So you've probably heard a lot about mapping of how it would work and what the kind of attributes will be in the payload that you'll be passing through to that endpoint. So you'll just write them underneath and you could put it in the table. There's a table functionality on Jira, so you could put it there. And of course the output table. So if there's a response back, so you could treat this as a request and a response. So it's totally up to you. And of course, if there's any errors, so if there's any kind of errors in the payload, error codes you would like to put in, you can also put those in. So it's just to kind of provide more context about exactly what you're trying to deliver in that ticket. Okay, so a good example here is that you would have the title and you would put the title of the functionality, a description, so you put the user story, brief, a background, a URL, so it could be a post call, the input, so it could be the request payload, and then the output payload, and then error payload, so it could be something about errors. Also, you'd want to include acceptance criteria. It's kind of good to have it. It's just to understand what the development is around it, for the dev team to understand what the output is, what is expected from this ticket. And also it's good for the tester as well to look at it to understand from the ticket what is expected in regards to happy path as well as unhappy path. REST API call. So this is basically a similar a similar kind of outlook on things, but of course a REST API call is something which is a bit more synchronous. So synchronous meaning that it's immediate response back. So a template would be something along the lines, it's like you want knowledge bank to connect to space.com, I don't know, for example. And these could be any type of examples, and I'm happy to provide you more examples if you need them, as this is just a brief quick demo basically. You would put a user story of exactly what you want out of it. So I want to receive a message from acknowledge bank so that I can write a log. So it's just an immediate kind of response, and you would still put the post call again and the credentials, so what the password is, if there's any login details or anything like that, and if there's any input, output, or error payloads, you can include that. So it's just kind of to give you a template of what you would expect in a Jira ticket for a REST API call. And same again, so I've just put in a kind of like a layout of what you would expect in an API call. I did the same again for asynchronous, so which is like a Kafka or some kind of storing database of some sort, which is similar to Kafka. And then of course asynchronous means that it's not immediate response back. But it's still quick enough, and it'll be published onto like a Kafka topic. It's like a topic where other domain areas, other companies, for example, as long as you give them access, can actually read off those topics for those attributes, those fields, so they can consume it for their own areas. So a good example here is like you would do exactly the same layout. You'd put a title, you would put a user story of some sort. So I know I've put kind of similar user stories for all three of them, but I mean, you can go into a little bit more detail. You can put, as a user, as a customer, I want to and so that I can and so you can include more, make it more extensive. This is just a brief layout. It's just to kind of give you a bit more context of what you should expect in a Jira ticket when you're working. If you need more details, if you need more examples, please let me know, and I'm happy to create more videos for that. And then of course that's the same again in regards to how a template would look inside a Jira ticket. So you would put a title, a description, and of course include these type of contexts. If there isn't, it's not a must, but ideally that's what a developer would expect, something of this sort. Acceptance criteria to ensure that you're covering all elements, all avenues of that ticket. Okay, I hope this has given you a bit of an insight of how a Jira ticket would look like. If you have any questions, or if you want more examples of user stories or acceptance criteria, please let me know, and I'm happy to provide them to you. Thank you for listening.